mean, we can.
Now we're recording.
I'm gonna make sure.
I believe it's going to be the August 1st to August 1st. If they find issues between August 1st and October 1st, they will probably be lenient with them. I've only had two. So I started working with Virginia communities in the fall of 2020. And since that time, I've only had two new application communities join. Now, part of that is because you have to have a CAV, and their schedule is a little difficult to manage when you have national emergencies. So, but Warren County joined and Enrico has joined, and those are the two new apps that I've had in my 5-year window with Virginia. So I'm not as up on the protocol for annual research for new application communities. Yes, Enrico asked if, because they are going effective as joining the CRS on October 1st of 24, when the August 1st, 25 date comes around, will their reporting period be from October 1st when they officially joined? Or will it be from August 1st and include those couple extra months before they were officially joined, but after they had their cycle visit and their draft verification report?
Yes.
And so my answer is plan on August 1st to August 1st. And if you miss something in that earlier couple months, you're not gonna know. You tell us on your permit list. If it's on your permit list as a new construction, finished construction, we are going to ask for an elevation certificate for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have. But
right.
We definitely have a permit.
Yeah, for your permit list, we only want those insurable structures, okay?
But we do have some permits. That's what I just want to make sure you don't download that. October to August.
Right.
But I don't think we'll have any. Also, the other question I have is by SFHA here.
We mean the FEMA SFHA. So you regulate a lot of extra acreage, and I will look at that as your ISO specialist on the 5-year. So if you collect them, but I have to look at, they're not set up to look at those because it shows up as on your firm. What are you? Your zone X, even though you are in community SFHA, but we don't have access to all of that nationwide. So we have to draw the line somewhere. That's where we draw it.
Okay.
FEMA SFHA.
Yeah, I had our setbacks.
Right. Exactly. All right. Other questions there? Oh, the chat. Or are there questions in the chat? You're doing the chat. Okay. All right. So folks online, we will send you out, or the whole group will send out the Word document for that so you can customize. And I did not bring up the state-based credit, but I can show you where you can grab it. So on the crsresources.org website, under the, I believe it's under the 200 series tab, state-based credit reports. And so we've got Virginia. And so these were all redone in 2024, but we are going to try to keep up with them. So I sent you guys an email, and I've gotten a little bit of response that we have the 2021 I codes that have been adopted, which is great because then I can have us update it from the 2018s here. The other ones, and there was something about no enclosures in the V zone and coastal A zones. So that will be something that we will review and potentially add to these other potential credit, because it only applies if you have V zone or coastal A zone. So the other potential credit means it's a state credit, but it might not apply to your community because you don't have that scenario, right? So state dam safety, only if you have a state regulated high hazard dam in your community, or a building in your community is affected by it, would you get that credit. So there may be other things that are applicable. If you have found something, feel free to let me know. Usually what this gets looked at for some things is the other disclosure requirements. Right now we've got just the rep loss disclosure. If there is a state regulation of, if it's in the SFHA, it must be notice disclosure given, or something like that. If there's a state reg for that, let me know and I'll get that added on here. Georgia has one that is like, if the structure has flooded 3 times in the past 5 years, the landlord must tell the tenant.
I'm going to talk about Virginia's failure in a minute.
So I don't want to go through all of these that are the state credits at the moment, but this is out there on the website. I sent it to you guys in an email, I think at the end of last week or early this week. I can't remember timelines.
Like it used to be.
This is like it used to. So, but it's updated. So it's like the old one, but it's updated. So we're going to try and keep up with that. So let me know if you have things. I have a meeting with my manager middle of next week to let him know any updates that we found. So if that helps give you a little push of, if you can get it to me by Tuesday, then I'll have it for my meeting on Wednesday. That'd be great. If it comes in after that, I will still let him know.
Is Freeport under other? We have Freeport in the building. But
it's in there because I, as the specialist, have to verify it that you're enforcing it. Things like the building codes and the local drainage protection, the positive drainage away from the structure, or the other disclosure requirements. Those are things that either I don't need a copy of the language on these, or like the other disclosure, I don't have to verify that you're doing it because the manual doesn't ask for verification documents. The other really is, but also it's other because a community might have higher amount of freeboard. So I have to go in and check. So yes, we have the state-based freeboard, but a community might have higher. So I can't just automatically say, yep, it's that for all my Virginia communities. I pre-write it. No, I can't do that. I can't pre-write that section of your files. Other questions? Okay. I do want to talk about this awesome website, which is CRS Viz, V-I-Z for visualizations. This is a really great way to kind of see at a glance the communities in a given state or across the nation. I'm going to go look at our state profile. This is a public website, so you guys can poke around here if you wish. When I come and I give presentations, I grab a lot of screenshots from these because they're very good visuals. So we go to which version we want, and then we come down to Virginia. And then this is the weird thing about this. We have to click on that to close that drop-down list. Okay. But so you can kind of see the spread of community. There's 30 communities in Virginia in the CRS program, how many policies, NFIP policies are in Virginia, the premiums, and then the locations and sort of a spread of their credits or their class levels. Yes. That would be this. Oh, sorry. Question was, is this data available per locality as well? And the answer is yes. So this first tab under the state profiles is the state profile summary. And this bar chart is Virginia versus the nation.
Look at 420.
We have more open space credit than the national average. Look at 430. You have more regulation credit than the national average.
Gosh, that is in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty exciting.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yes. So the first tab is the state profile summary. The second tab is the CRS activity data per community. So here are our 30 communities in Virginia, their class levels, and you can either view it with the check marks, yes, we're getting credit in that activity, or you can change it to values and you can see the number of credits in each activity, not each element of activity, but in each activity, okay? Additionally, this does not take into account credits from your multiplier, your county community growth adjustment multiplier for the activity, the 400 series activities, get that multiplier. That's not in this.
Like basic points for 20 or higher because of that effect.
Yeah. This data gets updated twice a year on the effective FEMA effective dates. So this is currently reflecting data from October 1st, 2024. Okay, so if I met with you in 2024, your new data is not up here yet. It won't be up here until your effective date. So, but this is a really great way to say, okay, well, I wanted to try to add activity 5. I wanted to try to add activity 610, and well, which one of my neighbors is doing 610 that I could maybe ask them about, right? This is a really great way to kind of come and look who's getting credit for that.
And this work group created this before CRS bids had this.
Yeah,
So
but now you don't have to make it. You don't have to make it on your own now.
Now yeah. So yeah.
So this is one of my favorite views on this. You can go back to the main homepage by clicking on the logo there to get all the different types of views that we're looking at. So, oh yeah, participation by years. So I don't look at this one often, but this is a fun one. If we come in and we go down to Virginia and try not to scroll too far, too fast, close that, drop down. All right, so these are all communities who've been in for more than 20 years, 21 and over years. That I don't think Warren County is right though, because they just joined. So that one is an anomaly, and I will talk to them about getting that fixed.
Couple errors here and there.
Well,
not
like I said, this is not the page that's used the most frequently on this one.
Are you sure it's not pulling it in like this page? It's still be valid.
It's supposed to be CRS participate. It's supposed to be CRS participation. You picked on a page that's not in our best. All right, we're gonna go back to a page that I like. I use this communities by classification quite a lot when I'm planning my year. Because I'm not a Virginian, I don't know where everybody is in my head without looking at the map.
Oh, look at all the time.
But so this is in order alphabetical within class rate range, if that makes sense. So all of our class 5s are in alphabetical order. All of our 6s are in alphabetical order. We had to pick the line somewhere, and it's not going to be by credit points because it's too hard to find names that way. But it's very exciting to see. So like when I'm planning, it's like I have to be in West Virginia in June. So my 2 West Virginia communities this year are I'm gonna tie that trip together. Or if I'm in the north, okay, I can tie those together. Or this year I've got Watchprig and Chicotee all together. So it's like, all right, you guys geographically. So there's lots of good stuff in this visualization page. You can also drill down even to this 430 higher regulatory standards page that has credits broken out by some of the elements in 430. We don't have all of the activities broken out like this, but 430 has so many elements that like freeboard standards, what are the different levels of freeboard? So you can kind of see these blue dots have really high freeboards. The green dots have even higher freeboards. Yours is wrong.
Yeah. Actually.
Is it wrong from your last effective results from your previous visit?
Yes.
So it may be that the color is wrong.
A lot of our communities have and so all of the 1 foot should be not that.
All right, it may be that if you have a split on residential is this and non-residential is that, or if you have a split of something else, that's why we've got freeboard 1 and freeboard 2, and a lot of communities also have a freeboard 3. There are different, like, these kind of buildings get this freeboard, and these kind of buildings in this zones get this kind of freeboard, and these kind of buildings in this other kind of zone get that freeboard. So it's not perfect, but it's more than you would be. So, but like foundation protection, substantial improvements, protection of critical facilities, it's a good place to kind of poke around. If you poke around.
So we're in county, lower substantial improvements. Okay, so we need to talk.
So they may have lowered their substantial improvement threshold to something less than 50%. So if they are, someone is trying to do a substantial improvement and or skip out on a substantial improvement, say, oh, I'm just going to do it 48%, they may have lowered their percentage level. So this is again, it's not perfect, and the page that I use the most is that state profiles page. If you want to see how Virginia compares nationwide, we do have the national view. So we've got Virginia with 30, and if you hover over something or you click on something, it'll just go to that one region or state. And if you click on it again, it goes back to the default. But you can kind of see, oh, there's different ways you can kind of look at the full program data. I believe that is an ISO that we've kind of put together. And in theory, you can get to it from our other resources page if we have fixed that link. I don't know if we have fixed that link, but updates are in progress. That's our default. So, but it is just crsviz.com for visualizations. There is, oh, something I forgot to put on the agenda. How are we doing on time? Not too bad. Okay. There is a little 8-minute video that I would like to be able to show. Do we have time for that?
Yep.
Okay. CRS Submit is a platform where you can submit your data to me for a cycle visit. It is not a platform to be used for recertifications yet. Eventually, we hope that that might be the case. But all of the data that you're submitting to me for your cycle review, this is a short little video on how you would be able to kind of walk through that and use that. A couple communities have used that, but it may become easier to use for you guys to utilize this in the future, especially for those very large size files that you're like, that's too big for an email, Emily. How am I going to get that to you? This is how. So I'm going to have this run. Yes.
CRS Submit is a web-based
That is
tool
not loud
that
enough.
allows communities to easily provide their ISO CRS. CRS Submit is a web-based tool that allows communities to easily provide their ISO CRS specialist with the documentation necessary. Your specialist and CRS coordinators. Before your next CRS specialist, then your community resilient CRS meeting.
They can hear it online.
Can't hear online. I will send out the links to this as well.
The first thing you'll be asked to do after logging into your community portal is add at least one primary contact and your community PTO. After adding those required contacts, click the Save button. Welcome screen of the community portal will indicate the verification stage of your submitted package. It will be marked pending until you submit final documentation. Welcome screen also allows you to monitor the progress of your community submission, indicating other community to start or continue a pending submission. Click the Go to Submission button. After logging into your community CRS Submit portal, you'll notice that your dashboard is composed of 3 sections: a primary navigation bar where users can give feedback or log out, sub-navigation area which shows you and provides a link for specialists, as well as a button for sending your submittal package and a main content where you build your submittal package. Here, there are also breadcrumbs that take you back to your CRS Submit dashboard. You can complete your activity, whatever order you wish. Navigate quickly to the activity. Keywords in the search box in the upper left corner. If you prefer to work through CRS activities in a sequential way, use the series navigation tree just below the search box. The structure of the series navigation tree mirrors that of the CRS coordinator's manual. The series number 200 through 600. Each one of the series consists of activity, and each activity consists of elements. After navigating to the series, activity, and element you'd like to complete, click to begin element 1 to start completing steps for that element. You determine whether or not your community is eligible for a given credit. CRS and ask you questions to verify your eligibility. Some of these questions provide a more info pop-up to add context to your question. Once your eligibility is verified, you can start adding supporting documentation. Your submittal supporting documentation can be added to your submittal package in 2 ways, either in the form of file uploads, typed responses. If you prefer step-by-step view as you work your way through a given element, you have the guided form view. The guided form view shows how walking users through. But if you utilize the guided form view, naturally you'll be ready to review uploads for your submission. Screen, you'll find a list of all documents submission. Above that, you'll also see the green finish.
That's a good button to push. You want to push the green add to submission button. The one at the tippy tip top that's yellow final submit, that's the one you want to wait on.
Status bar to the change to green. You may recall that steps began completing steps for a chosen a status of that element. Series navigation tree turned yellow, indicating that we started but not finished that element. If you had chosen not to pursue the element from the outset, you would have noticed a red status bar in the series navigation tree. The not pursuing button does not need to be clicked for every element decided to pursue. Indeed, it is simply a tool for communities. Community members with a primary coordinator might want to clear the team that they are not activity. While your submission is in progress, you can decide at any time to discard all written responses and documents for that element by clicking the Discard Changes button. Documents you submit for a given element can be edited even after they've been added to submission, provided you haven't clicked the final submit button.
I don't like those labels, but
It changes to documents. Make changes button. Screen. Upon confirming you'd like to proceed making changes, you'll be returned to the first step of the submission process. You'll notice that the status of your submission is once again progress instead of Above that, two different. Manual first taking you a PDF review. So we are back. Respectful, however, do also welcome to provide feedback to the CRS.
That's the danger button. Don't click that one unless you're really ready to come to me.
Final, it's getting the opportunity to review any elements that are still in progress. Those you might have started but not added to the final submission. You can quickly add new progress elements to your submission by clicking add. Labels, potential changes to it. And review it without question. Elements added to submission are one of the changes that you will get to review those as well. Take the to confirm.
It locks you out so that I have access. So you're not trying to change things when I look at.
You're submitted for review by your specialist. And she or he will receive a notification that your submission.
She unlock it. I can unlock it, yes. If you accidentally hit. That's the end of it. Not 100 times. Less than a dozen.
So are you locked out of looking at it? So we have submitted everything, or can you kind of look at it and feedback?
Just don't download it and my internal comments on. And I do have a button to impersonate community so I can see it from your point of view instead of just from my point of view. But if you click the final submit button and it locks you out, you can't go in and add notes or upload or say, oh, I didn't mean that file, I wanted this file. So if that happens and you weren't ready to do that, maybe back in here, if you do that and you're not ready for me to have it and you're still moving and working with it, just email me and say, hey, I didn't mean to lock myself out. Can you unlock it? It is not hard for me to do that, but try not to hit the yellow final submit button up in the top corner every time you do an element. It is confusing because add to final submission is the right thing to do. Final submit is the wait for it thing. And this is a fairly new platform for us. We originally built it before the addendum came out, and then we kind of had to stop our rollout so that we could fix things per all the changes with the addendum. And you guys haven't really seen much of it because I was still learning things and rolling with just let me learn the program, not the platform. Let me communicate to you guys and work piecemeal. I like working in pieces, whereas this is kind of I get the whole thing flooded at me at once. But it is a very good tool if you want to kind of have that guided walk through and you don't already have your own folder structure of, all right, well, I've got all my 320 stuff in a 320 folder. I've got all my 330 stuff in a 330 folder. If you already have it like that, then this might feel a little bit tedious to say, okay, this document goes in here. This document goes in here. I already had them all collected. Why does she need it this way? It is still optional to use this platform. It is, like I said, really good for if you need to be kind of walked through, if you're a newer coordinator, or if you're bringing somebody new, or you have a lot of people working on one submittal and you're like, okay, work on it. But when you're ready, put it in CRS submit. And I'm not going to hit final submit until I've looked through everything as the main coordinator. You can have multiple people working in it. You just have to let me know their contact information so I can add them as a user. So it is a way to submit your documentation for your cycle visit year. I don't know that we have it sorted out for modifications yet, because we kind of only have the ones that are supposed to cycle in that year active to try to keep the size of everything manageable. But let me know. I will send out the link to that YouTube training. Oh yes, she's gonna launch a poll. And if you have questions, or if you think that's really great, I would love that kind of guided step-by-step. Did I meet this credit criteria? And I said yes to that little question, and now I know what they're looking for exactly. I don't have to wait on that letter from Emily. I can go ahead and start, because those crosswalk letters really are just me pulling the documentation required section from the manual and sticking it in a letter format for all the things you previously got credit for. But if you added something new, I don't know that you added it necessarily, so I'm not going to include it in your crosswalk letter. But everything is in the CRS submit. So if you wanted to browse through and be like, yep, we're going to do that. We're definitely not doing that one, not pursue. You can kind of have an at a glance. It's like, oh, most of my buttons are green or red. That means they're done. I'm done touching them. A couple of them are still yellow. That's what I need to focus on this week. It can be a really useful tool. And I'm sure I will be doing more trainings on it as we go. But let me know if you have interest in it. See, 11:35, we're getting closer. Do we have questions about that now? About CRS submit? Or we're just absorbing it's brand new? Yes. I will repeat the question.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to let I used that this year for our cycle visit. I did find it helpful. The areas that wanted to let everybody know that I did use this portal for our cycle visit. This is Mike at James City County. And it was useful. It did help keep me organized, because I could, at a glance, turn on and off those elements that we were not pursuing. There were a couple hiccups on my end that Emily bailed me out on. But she's right. She will unlock the program and let you resubmit or continue to submit information. That
locking is so that either the community is working on it or I'm working on it, but we're not both working on potentially different versions at the same time. Yeah. That's the point of that very frustrating and yet needed feature.
Right. It also, to me, it was parts of it were a little redundant for those areas that we're getting multiple credit for, such as our notification letters, had to submit them under each activity. That was. I
haven't had a bunch of communities use this platform yet, but there should be a place for a note where maybe we could say, if I put it in 330, or if it's the same thing I put in 320, it's already in 320. And then
there could be a little crossover.
Yes, it's frustrating for you and it's frustrating for me when I get like, is this the exact same thing or is this a different version?
Right. Yeah.
So there are some tweaks.
But I would encourage people to at least look at it and use it as a resource. It also tied back to the manual, which was good. And so it just helped kept everything organized.
And if you try it and you're like, Emily, I can't, I'm not this time. That's all right. We can go back to just submitting a big zipped folder of everything through the file transfer platform, or through attaching it to a bajillion emails that I will then reply. Got it. Once I've saved it in my folders. So
that's all I have.
Thank you so much. And yes, it's been tricky for me to remind myself to tell communities this is an option. But there we go. Very good. Okay. And if you have more questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. I do want to kind of go over some summaries of who I've worked with in the past couple of years and who I'm going to be working with this year, and that kind of thing. April 1st, 2025 effective date is coming up. And Poquoson and Arlington are both on there with class improvements. So they are moving from 8s to 7s. Very excited. October 1st, 2025, so this fall, I have a couple more weeks to get folks in on that list. But I know that I haven't given you your finished letter yet, Newport News, but we did a modification, and I just have to do my last dotting of I's and crossing of T's to send it to you. But we are moving from that 7 to a 6 for your modification. Great job. And then I did meet with a few other communities this year. This past in 24, James City County, Alexandria, and Norfolk. And they are all in some version of I'm still working on their file. Either it's with I've written it up and it's with my reviewers and I'm explaining the nuances that they have questions about, or I'm still fully working on your file, or Norfolk, we met on December 30th remotely, and I will see them tomorrow in person so that they can have an in-person version of the cycle. So theirs is still fully in sending me the last missing pieces.
We're so excited to see you from Norfolk tomorrow.
So I'm excited about that, but it was a little alarming when I looked at, because I manage both Virginia and Georgia, and I've learned that my brain does not like to hold both of you in my head at the same time. So I either need to be I'm doing all my Virginia stuff this week, I'm doing Georgia stuff this week. It's not great at the flip-flop, but I looked. So folks in the video and folks in the room, this is all 30 of your communities colored by what year your visit was or is going to be. So in 24, I had 3 plus a modification. And in 25, this year, I will have 8 of you. And in 26, I have 15 of you. And then in 27, I don't have any of you. Unless you want a modification or convince a neighbor they should join. There is, I don't know who or how that's going to work, but there is a chance that some people scheduled for 26 may be deferred to 27. I am very excited because 2026 marks the year that I get to go back and talk with people that I did your previous visit. Because 21 was the first year I was really doing visits in Virginia, but they were all remote because of COVID. So all these communities that I met with that I didn't get to meet in person with. So nobody is currently scheduled for 27, and then 28, well, I only have 3. So it's not a balanced spread. And I'm not entirely sure how to get it to, or if we would get it to a balanced spread, but between Virginia and Georgia, I have a fairly balanced rolling calendar. So we're not going to mess with it too much. But whenever I have to transfer to another specialist, I usually try to do the Georgia communities. I try to keep you guys, like some other specialist wants to go to the Georgia coast and do some of those, right? They never take my Metro Atlanta ones. I have to do all of those. But I'm just really excited about folks who are working to improve your classes. And I do have spots open for technical assistance visits if you want to have a couple hours of discussion that you don't have to necessarily submit anything, and but you do want to talk about your program. It's not the same kind of thing if it's in your cycle year, but anybody who's scheduled to cycle in 26, if you want to say, hey, let's do either in person or remote, depending on how I can fit you into my schedule, those are TAVs, technical assistance visits, that are either a couple hours or could potentially be a whole day, depending on how much we have to discuss. So sometimes that's because there's a brand new coordinator. Sometimes it's because you guys are working to improve a class and you want to go over stuff. But let me know if that strikes any of you as a, yeah, let's definitely do that. I do know that we have a lot of you as that class 5 or class 5 asterisk looking to win the race to a class 4 or better. I have talked with the stormwater and watershed master plan technical reviewers to see if potentially we can get a group call or training or something organized, because between Virginia and Georgia, I have a lot of you. So those are not necessarily going to be focused TAV if that's what your main question is, but let me know so I can put you on the list of make sure to include when that happens. All right. And I've taken a lot of our time.
No, you're good. You're good.
And hopefully it was helpful. And I will send you guys all those copies of things and the video.
And I put the video in the link, but we'll send everything out in the pack.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, we are going to run through the rest. No, that's okay. All right, so I launched the CRS poll. It's literally like just for CECs. Tell me about whether or not you want to go up a class or something like that. I can't remember. So just fill it out, please. A lot of Virginia policy updates. I'm going to remove this slide. It's old and I meant to delete it. So as you all may have seen and heard, and we've discussed in this work group, flood risk disclosure was on the docket in the General Assembly again. This was through the Housing Commission, and it died in the Housing Commission because the realtors don't want it. So Delegate Hernandez brought it, nevertheless, to the General Assembly, this time with 3 co-patrons, which you don't see here: Moorfield, Green, and I'm blanking on the third, Clark from Portsmouth. And so that's across the political spectrum, geographically diverse too. So the bill was tabled again, and that's because again, I don't want to take too much time. There's a lot of other stuff that's going on in the GA. This is a dam safety bill that seems to be just flying through. It's got a lot of bipartisan support, as the support of the administration. It's basically ensuring that DCR has more authority to regulate its dams and to look at some of those lower hazard dams as well. This is a really interesting and just easy bill that basically re-invites tribal nations to apply for CFPF funding. They were initially eligible. The administration pulled their eligibility out of just an administrative grant manual update. And then this bill seems to have a lot of great traction. So hopefully that's going to pass through. This might be of interest to those people in the peninsula and in Virginia Beach, certainly in Norfolk as well. Delegate Hernandez has brought a bill that requests the Office of Resilience Study to develop a process by which requests from local governments to get Army Corps of Engineers CSRM funding as their local match should go through to determine how much money is available. So right now, everybody, and it's just Norfolk because they're the only ones that are moving forward and now need money, are basically asking for resources. And so they're pulling it from various different places. CFPF is not enough money. And earmarks are what's happening now. And that's okay as a short-term solution. But as soon as the peninsula comes knocking, as soon as Virginia Beach comes knocking, and Northern Virginia, which is like the big, sleeper on this, it's going to get hairy. And so let's create a process. A companion bill that is actually for a JLARC study is also floating around. And so it's sort of like, will it go to the Office of Resilience, which is not staffed yet, or will it go to JLARC, but they are picking and choosing what they want to study. So know that this is an effort that is underway to try to create a process so it isn't a non-equitable distribution of resources and localities competing and already, competing more than you already are. So that's something that's underway. Another thing that everybody should be watching is an admin bill coming from Delegate O'Quinn. And this is basically establishing a disaster assistance fund for the purpose of addressing life safety and housing costs associated with disasters where you don't get a payout from insurance. So it's creating a gap filler. And this is important. We do certainly need this in the state because, again, those resources are coming in an ad hoc fashion. They're coming from earmarks, and it'd be great to have a process. But this bill is super vague, and there's no definition of what a disaster is. There's no definition of what life costs are or safety or housing costs. So this is great, but our kind of worry is that it's too fast and not enough work done to prepare. And we've been kind of watching this big challenge of pre-disaster money in the CFPF and Dam Safety Fund, and this empty, non-existent fund for post-disaster relief. And so we've been thinking about this, and Delegate Moorfield was interested in carrying a bill several years ago that established a post-disaster fund because of the impacts of Southwest Virginia in 2022. So just know this is happening. We're hoping that it won't go and that we can get somebody to actually sit people down and talk about how to set up something like this. So it's not willy-nilly. Some federal updates very quickly. The NFIP reinsurance increased for FEMA's ability to add some of the financial risk of the NFIP into the private reinsurance market. Interestingly, I just thought you might be interested. 27, it's spread across 27 private reinsurance companies. And to date, FEMA has transferred a little over $2 billion of our flood risk to the private sector. And if a storm event is large enough to trigger all of these reinsurance agreements, then there'll be qualifying payments that will occur that will all be based on, what the fiscal viability or fiscal health of the NFIP is currently. So that's kind of a big update. Several big updates with the first 2 weeks of the Trump administration underway now. Trump passed an EO that creates a FEMA review council. The idea is that this council will review is FEMA effective or not, basically. And ASFPM is on high alert on this, and they're going to be kind of querying stakeholders, trying to get some information to the people on the council to ensure that all of the good parts of FEMA are maintained and there isn't chaos. And so that is something that you can read about. The FFRMS was rolled back. We all saw this coming, I'm sure, the Federal Flood Risk Management Standard. This does not affect FEMA and HUD's existing regulations. They established their standard for doing the FFRMS. So that doesn't get affected. It's just there's no mandate that the other agencies that have not yet created an FFRMS do so. And he rescinded it last time he was president too. So we kind of knew this was going to happen. All right. So then the good news is that the Army Corps of Engineers has released a new update. And this includes even more, kind of higher standards for building. And I have not read this yet, but it's been passed around. And so it'll be linked. Take a look at it. Yes. So it's expansion of the 500-year, similar to FFRMS effect, right? Sort of. And of course, we're calling the 500-year floodplain of the future. So that's a really, really positive thing for our protection of our communities. All of the FEMA advisory councils that you can see listed here have been eliminated in favor of the larger advisory council, which has a 120-day ticking time bomb for them to get their review to the administration. So all of these groups, many people from across the country that we associate with are no longer on these boards. And so that means that getting information to that new advisory council is so very critical. I'm sure many of you have seen and have heard the news about this OMB federal assistance freeze memo that went out. This rocked our world big time. And of course, rocked, much more important programs like healthcare and, food for children and things like that. But this is affecting a lot of our stakeholders and a lot of floodplain management people because of the way in which our consultants are paid for work that they do for you all in the state. This is affecting that type of work too. So just be aware of this. And there's been some walk back, and then a judge kind of helped eliminate the freeze for really important health, safety, welfare type stuff. So just big in our community on this. Very lastly, we just released this new resource for practitioners. It's all about designing living shorelines to be adaptive to sea level rise in Virginia. In 2020, a law was passed saying that you have to consider sea level rise and coastal hazards when you design a living shoreline in Virginia, but there's been no real specific, direction on how to do that. And so we worked with a bunch of practitioners and created this resource. We are going to do a future meeting where you bring your wetland staff person to work group, and we'll go through this because I think it's a pretty interesting approach to, offering these examples of what has been installed elsewhere that can really help do this adaptive design. So this is not like a regulatory instrument. This is not guidance or anything like that. It is just an example, lots of case studies, lots of pictures, lots of recommendations for how to design. So that will be forthcoming. All right, so that was kind of my quick and dirty, not so quick overview of everything. If you have something that you need to report out on, please report out on it now. Let's start in the room. Any updates that you haven't shared, please share.
James City County has no further updates.
No further updates.
Nobody does
Newport News.
MC, I do have one.
Yes.
So the 2021 Virginia codes became effective last January 18th. Traditionally, Chapter 1 administration gives applicants another year to continue using the 2018. That deadline was last Friday. So we still have applications in the queue that came in before last Friday that will be reviewed on 2018 code.
Yeah, that's an important update.
And I'd like in a future meeting if we could talk about some of that, because we have some serious questions on how to enforce some of it, particularly that 200 square foot storage thing. We've been doing it limited. About the only place where we've seen that we can do it is if it's an enclosure underneath pilings or.
Okay, that would be great. And I know that some people in our work group were a part of the updates. Were you on the work group committee? Okay. So maybe we can get some of the people you were on too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we've written DHCD twice asking for clarifications and we've gotten nothing.
Are you emailing Jeff? Or you
No, I forget. I'd have to check with Art.
the guy. But yeah, Jeff Brown. But I think that's a really good idea. And I think that would be helpful to clarify also just what our state standards are for floodplain management and how CRS uniform state credits can be applied. And maybe we can run some examples of how that's actually been credited.
It'd be really helpful if VBCOA could do some actual floodplain training to building officials that aren't in your region that actually care about it. And are non-coastal.
Yeah.
I'll raise the top.
Great. It's really helpful. Anybody else online want to come off of mute and provide an update? Sorry, we're a little over.
That's my fault.
No, it's you're good. Okay, we have a lot of ideas for future meetings. So it's gonna get really good. We're gonna have some good stuff to talk about. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to people online. Have a wonderful rest of the week. We'll follow up. The recording started halfway through, so it's a good thing you came. And we're in this Zoom meeting. So everybody else is gonna miss out. Thanks.